Hello everybody, this video is a documentary style video about Ambercrombie Park in St. Petersburg, Florida. It is a final for my anthropology class at St. Petersburg College. So I hope you guys enjoy all the information that I share, and let's get right into it. Ambercrombie Park is on Park Street and 38th Avenue North in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a small park tucked in. If you were driving past and didn't know it was there, you would easily miss it. But it's a place that has a lot of rich old Florida history, and it isn't talked about nearly enough, in my opinion. Most people, if they know it, they know it's a place where people go to walk their dogs or just to sit and look at the Boca Ciega Bay estuary. But there are mounds there, Native American mounds or indigenous peoples mounds, whichever term you prefer. They're mounds and shell middens, which are basically just layers of shell to delineate between just different areas or time periods during those settlements. They are part of a pre-Columbian village occupied by Native Americans between 140 AD and 565 AD during the early Weeden Island period, and again during the early Safety Harbor period. That's between 890 and 1390 AD. So Florida became a U.S. territory in 1821, and white homesteaders started to move in and claim plots of land. And one of those, a Joseph Silva, filed a homestead claim under the Armed Occupation Act on May 30th, 1843 at Fort Brooke, at what now is downtown Tampa. And he was a turtle fisherman, and he built his home basically just in the middle of the park that we know today. He was one of the earliest documented white settlers in the Pinellas Peninsula, along with John Levitch and Maximo Hernandez. All that's left is a small circular embankment that's about 4 feet high and 58 feet in diameter. There's a 3D model, which I'll put up. If you look in the actual videos, you cannot tell it's there. I spent a long time looking for like any delineation. I could not find it. And that was because in the 20s, when they were building the streets, so like Park Street and 38th Street North, they used the shell fill / midden as a way to fill the streets before they paved over it. So in the 1920s, many indigenous native burial mounds and middens were destroyed and used for road fill, which was kind of the reason why I wanted to start this project and like talk about it, because I feel like that's something that's not talked about unless you took the Florida history courses in high school, which I didn't, and I just stumbled across this, so I don't know if they talk about it then either. Couple archaeologists and excavations have been done and everything. Really, the first time was in like the, I'm trying to look, the 1800s, 1900s, 1916, and 1926, but those were people who were repurposing the property for their own work. In the 90s, there was some, and again in 2017, in preparation for the restoration project, which actually the St. Pete Park administration bought a house, and because their house was built on a mound. So they bought that property and essentially filled in their pool and bottom levels of their house for the excavation that was done. And also their garage. All of that, all their basic bottom levels of their house were left and just filled in to not disturb whatever was left of the shell midden or the mound. It's called the Cutler Mound now due to the family's property. There's quite a few figures. So technically the Cutler Mound and Ambercrombie Park are part of the Bay Shore Homes complex. And then there's a figure 5 that kind of shows that area. Let's see. The excavation of the Cutler Mound started with about 247 meters deep, and they found many items. There's a whole table 1, multiple shell artifacts, bead artifacts, faunal remnants, as well as shells, like other shells. There's also multiple figures, 7 through 11, that were examples of artifacts. They also used radiocarbon to date them, and they indicated that the mound was between 890 and 1390 during that Wheaton and Safety Harbor period. That was found out in about 2014. They ended up demolishing the small midden separating the 2 concrete walls of that house, that structure. They found even more items that were similarly recovered in 1999, which was essentially the previous owners, like that's when the ground broke for their house, like that's when they built it essentially. And that is table 2, and then that was similar, the shell beads, the weights, the remains of animals, and other things. And so essentially this whole park is just really groundbreaking for the St. Pete area, because they used LiDAR to try and figure out where the rest of the mounds were and what was actually left, which is how they found out about the larger one in the middle of the park. It's quite literally in the middle of the park, because there's a path going straight down the middle, and there's big open areas on both sides, and it's supposed to be in that one of those sections, and you cannot tell that there's not very well, at least in the virtual tour that I looked at. I've been there, which is the video that's playing as my background. But yeah, so LiDAR, radiocarbon dating, and just preserving everything. I couldn't go as far into detail as I wanted. I have a whole thing, but I did screen record and upload the Florida Parks, St. Pete Parks PDF of the restoration project and the plans and a lot of the history from that 2019 project. And I hope you guys go and give it a quick look. It has the same pictures, the same information, just more detailed. And go visit. Pay your respects and think about a Florida that doesn't exist anymore, good and bad. It's a very serene park. People will have their dogs there, but they're usually very kind, and everyone tends to keep to themselves. But yeah, thank you for watching. Yeah.